with the feeling of someone looking back at the way they handled you and realizing too late that they treated your heart as if it were ordinary. It begins with someone finally understanding that they treated something precious as if it were replaceable, and now that truth is landing in them all at once. The first card appearing here is Five of Cups. This is the card of regret that cannot be brushed aside, not a passing maybe I should have done better. This is the kind of regret that arrives when someone replays a moment in their head and hears their own tone differently, sees their own behavior differently, understands how careless they were only after the warmth is gone from the room. This person may be remembering the way you showed up, the effort you made, the softness you offered, the patience you gave, and the more they replay those memories, the more obvious their own behavior seems now. What hurts them is not only that they may have hurt you. What hurts them is realizing that while you were there, they did not fully recognize your value. The next card appearing here is the Hermit. This tells me the regret is not loud, it is private, it is happening in stillness, in thought, in quiet stretches of time where someone has to sit with themselves and listen to the truth they have been avoiding. The Hermit says this person may be withdrawing internally, not because they feel nothing, but because they feel too much and do not yet know how to face it cleanly. They may be going over details, your words, your silence. The distance now where there used to be access, and in that private reflection, a painful understanding may keep returning. You were never nothing. The next card appearing here is the Empress. This is beautiful and sad because it shows how they are beginning to see you now. The Empress is worth, care, warmth, presence, the kind of person who brings life into a connection simply by being real in it. This card says your energy may have held more generosity, more beauty, more emotional richness than they knew how to honor at the time. The Empress is not someone who should have been handled carelessly, and that is exactly the realization breaking open here. This person may now see that what you brought was not small, your attention was not small, your care was not small, your emotional honesty was not small. Being loved by you, known by you, or even simply received by you was a privilege they treated too casually. The next card appearing here is Justice. Now the energy sharpens because justice does not let someone romanticize regret without also facing accountability. This card says they may be recognizing that the pain of the current distance is not random. It belongs to the choices they made, the inconsistencies, the dismissal, the moments where they acted like your feelings would always be there waiting for them. Justice brings the truth back to center. If they feel the loss now, it is because they did not handle the connection with fairness when they had the chance. And deep down, they know that the next card appearing here is Six of Cups. This card changes the emotional texture. Suddenly, the reading feels less like punishment and more like memory. Once regret opens, memory follows. They may be thinking about the small moments now, the easy ones, the honest ones, the moments that felt ordinary at the time seem almost glowing in hindsight. A conversation, the way you listened, the way the energy softened around you. Six of Cups says they are not only regretting behavior, they are missing the feeling of you, because now the connection is no longer standing in front of them asking to be valued. It is living behind them as something they should have held more carefully. The final card appearing here is the World. It says the realization is changing the story inside them. The World often appears when someone understands that a chapter ended in a way they did not expect. And now they can see the shape of what that chapter really meant. This person may be realizing that losing your warmth, your trust, or your emotional openness created a closure they never thought would feel this final. And that finality is what is forcing honesty now. So the message of this first part is very clear. This person regrets treating you like you were easily replaceable. They regret acting like your heart was small enough to risk. They regret handling your presence as if it were ordinary, because only now, with distance between you, are they beginning to understand something that should have been obvious from the start. You were never nothing to them. If anything, you were one of the most meaningful energies they had ever been given, and they were too careless to recognize it in time. Something quieter is happening now, and in some ways it may hurt even more than the first realization, because regret is one thing, but understanding exactly what was lost is something else. The first card appearing here is the Hanged Man. This card says their perspective has changed completely. What they once brushed aside, they are now being forced to look at from a different angle. The Hanged Man often appears when someone can no longer escape the truth of a situation. They are suspended in it, held there, made to see it slowly. And what they may be seeing now is the contrast between how you loved and how they responded. You may have offered consistency, and they offered uncertainty. You may have offered softness, and they answered with carelessness. You may have shown up with sincerity, while they acted as if there would always be more time. The Hanged Man says they are now stuck with that contrast, and it is changing the way they see everything. The next card appearing here is the Queen of Cups. This card is important because it shows how your heart may live in their memory now. The Queen of Cups is tenderness, emotional depth, quiet devotion, the kind of person who does not need to be loud to be deeply felt. So this person may now be remembering the emotional atmosphere around you, the way your care felt, the way your presence softened things, the way you may have understood them without demanding too much in return. That kind of energy leaves a mark, especially on someone who only realizes its value after it is no longer easily available to them. The next card appearing here is the Tower. Now the reading breaks open even more because the Tower says this is not only regret anymore, it is shock. Shock at their own blindness, shock at how much they are feeling now. Shock at the realization that what they pushed away may have been one of the most real things offered to them in a very long time. The Tower is the moment someone thinks, how did I not see this before? And the answer may be hard for them to sit with because sometimes people do see love, but they do not respect it until they feel the emptiness that follows its absence. The next card appearing here is the Star. This makes the reading even more emotional because despite everything, your energy still appears to them as something beautiful, something healing, something almost untouchably pure now that it is partly out of reach. The Star says they may look back on your presence with a kind of reverence, not because you were perfect, but because what you gave was real, and real becomes sacred very quickly. Once someone realizes how rare it actually was. The next card appearing here is the Five of Pentacles. This card shows lack, emptiness, feeling left outside of something warm. This person may now understand what your absence feels like, not in a dramatic performance kind of way, but in the quiet daily way that matters more. The missing response, the missing closeness, the missing emotional access they once treated casually. Five of Pentacles says they may now feel shut out from the very comfort they failed to value when it was offered freely, and that feeling may be teaching them more than words ever could. The final card appearing here is the King of Cups. This card changes the ending of the part in a powerful way, because it says there are real feelings underneath all of this. Not only guilt, not only disappointment in themselves, real emotion, deep emotion, the kind that may have existed all along, but was hidden under immaturity, avoidance, pride, or simple emotional laziness. Now those feelings may be surfacing in a much clearer way, and the message of this second part becomes painfully simple. This person is beginning to understand that they did not lose something ordinary. They mishandled someone whose heart had real depth. They took your care lightly. And now the absence of that care is showing them just how much it meant. There is another layer here too, and it feels very human. Part of what hurts them may be realizing that you did not have to love them the way you did. You chose to give to see. To stay softer than the world usually allows people to stay, and instead of honoring that, they may have acted entitled to it, as if your tenderness was guaranteed, as if your patience had no ending, as if your value could be postponed and still remain available. But now the cards say something inside them knows better, knows your presence mattered, knows your heart was rare, knows they treated something meaningful, like it could be replaced when it never truly could. And that knowledge may be following them everywhere now. In silence, in memory, in the small moments where your absence feels louder than any excuse they once used to justify the way they handled you. It stays with them. A deeper truth begins surfacing here, and it feels less like memory now and more like emotional surrender. Because after someone has replayed the past, after they have seen their own behavior more clearly, and after they have finally understood the value of what they mishandled, another stage begins, and that stage is grief. The first card appearing here is the Six of Swords. This card says their mind is trying to move forward, but their heart is not moving at the same speed. On the outside, they may be attempting to keep life going, to stay practical, to stay occupied, to keep the days moving. But inside, there is still something unfinished, still something following them quietly. The Six of Swords often appears when a person is leaving one mental state behind but carrying emotional weight with them into the next. So yes, they may be trying to create distance from the pain of the realization, but the realization itself is traveling with them. The next card appearing here is the Nine of Cups. And this card is painful in this context because it shows that part of what they miss is not only you as a person, but the emotional experience of being connected to you, the warmth, the comfort, the feeling of being seen, the sense that your energy brought something gentle into their life. Now that they understand what your presence actually gave them, the loss becomes more specific. They may not only think, I miss them. They may think, I miss who I was when they were close. That is a very different kind of ache. The next card appearing here is the Ten of Swords. Now the reading reaches its hardest emotional point. Because this card says the truth has already landed, the cycle of denial is breaking, the excuses are thinning out. The Ten of Swords often appears when a person can no longer protect themselves from the consequences of what they did or failed to do. This person may now know very clearly that they created damage not by hating you, not by wanting to lose you, but by failing to value you while they still had access to your heart. And sometimes that kind of ending hurts more because it did not have to happen the way it did. The next card appearing here is the Page of Pentacles. This matters. Because even through the grief, there is still a part of them thinking about repair, thinking about whether something can still be rebuilt, whether there is any opening left, any way to approach the situation more humbly now, more carefully, more honestly. The Page of Pentacles is not a grand promise. It is the small beginning of sincerity, and that says a lot because even if they do not yet know what to say, there is a part of them that knows silence is not healing anything. The next card appearing here is the Sunday. This may seem surprising after the heaviness of the other cards, but here it carries a very precise message. The Sunday is showing that the truth about you has become bright in their mind. No more confusion, no more acting as if your value was unclear, no more pretending they did not know what your presence meant. They know now, and that clarity may be exactly what hurts because people can survive confusion for a while. But clear regret, clear loss, clear truth, that is much harder to escape. The final card appearing here is the Two of Cups. This card closes the part with emotional honesty. It says the bond itself mattered. It was real, mutual in its own way, significant. Whatever shape the connection took, it carried real feeling. And now that feeling may be impossible for them to dismiss or downgrade. So the message of this third part becomes very clear. This person is not only looking back with regret, they are beginning to grieve the full weight of what they mishandled. Your presence, your care, your softness, your value. And the more honestly they face that truth, the more it may become impossible for them to keep pretending that losing access to your heart was a small thing. There is one more layer here, and it feels very important. Part of what may be breaking them open is the realization that you did not become less valuable just because they failed to treat you well. You did not become nothing because they acted like you were easy to lose. If anything, distance may have made your worth even clearer in their mind. Your absence may now be speaking more loudly than your presence was ever allowed to. And that is the lesson pressing into them now. You were not ordinary. You were not replaceable. You were not replaceable. You were not something to handle carelessly and circle back to later. You were someone whose presence held real emotional weight. And now, with that weight fully felt, they may finally be understanding what it cost them to take you for granted. It was love they mishandled, and now the silence around your name is teaching them what your tenderness was truly worth to the core. Something steadier appears here, and in some ways, it may cut even deeper than the grief, because this part of the reading is not only about what they lost, it is about what they now understand about you. The first card appearing here is the Emperor. This card says they are being forced to look at the connection with more maturity than before. The Emperor is structure, responsibility, and the painful awareness that some things cannot be handled carelessly without consequences. So this person may be realizing that your heart required more respect, more steadiness, more intention than they gave it. They may now see that what you needed was not unreasonable, it was real. And that truth may be humbling them. The next card appearing here is the Nine of Pentacles. This is a powerful card in this reading because it shows how they may be seeing you now independent, valuable, self-contained. Someone whose worth does not collapse just because another person failed to honor it. The Nine of Pentacles says your energy may now feel even more untouchable to them than before. Not because you became colder, but because they are finally seeing your value clearly. They may understand now that you were never asking for too much. You were simply carrying yourself with standards, dignity, and quiet self-respect. And people who do not recognize that in the moment often feel the full impact later. When access changes, the next card appearing here is the Lovers. This card tells me the connection itself still lives strongly in their heart. Not as a vague memory, not as a convenient attachment, but as something meaningful, something emotionally significant. The Lovers appears when someone can no longer deny that a bond mattered deeply. So whatever excuses they once used, whatever emotional distance they once hid behind, the cards say the truth underneath is now very hard for them to escape. You mattered. The connection mattered, and the way they handled it matters too. The next card appearing here is the Five of Wands. This says there is conflict inside them now. Not only sadness, conflict, one part of them may want to protect their pride. Another part may know they need to face what they did, honestly. One part may want to move on. Another part may keep returning to you, your absence, your value, your energy. This inner clash can be exhausting because regret is one thing, but regret mixed with ego, mixed with longing, mixed with the fear that they may have ruined something important, creates a very noisy emotional state. The next card appearing here is the Star, and this card softens the reading again in a beautiful way. The Star says your energy is still something healing in their mind. They may not only regret losing closeness with you, they may also realize that your presence brought peace into their life in ways they failed to recognize at the time. The Star is gentle, honest, rare. So part of what they are mourning may be the fact that being near you felt better than they knew how to appreciate while they had it. The final card appearing here is Judgment. This closes the part with awakening, a deeper understanding, a moment where denial weakens and truth stands up straight. Judgment says they are beginning to understand that this was not just a passing connection they handled poorly. This was someone who may have meant far more than they let themselves admit. So the message of this fourth part is very clear. This person is not only regretting behavior, they are realizing your true value. They are realizing the connection had weight. They are realizing that treating you like you were nothing did not make you less important. It only revealed how unprepared they were to recognize what they had. There is another layer here too, and it feels important to say it plainly. Part of what may be hitting them now is the understanding that you may not even need their realization anymore. You may have already started rebuilding your peace, reclaiming your energy, pulling your heart back toward yourself. And that can be very sobering for someone who assumed they would always have time to fix things later, because latter does not always wait. Sometimes the lesson arrives only after the door has already begun to close, and now they may finally be learning what your absence teaches that your presence never could. That can feel brutal because it forces them to see the whole picture at once, not only who you were to them, but who they were being while you stood there loving them. And when those two truths stand side by side, the gap between them may be impossible to ignore. You may have shown up with sincerity. They may have answered with delay. You may have offered steadiness. They may have offered half presence now. They may finally understand how much your heart was caring and how little care they returned then. A quieter kind of pain appears here, and it feels almost harder to watch because this is the stage where regret becomes personal. Not only I made a mistake, but I finally understand who I was hurting. The first card appearing here is the High Priestess. This card says a lot is happening inside them, even if they are not speaking it all aloud. The High Priestess is hidden knowing, inner truth. The kind of realization that settles in silence and changes a person from the inside out. So this person may be carrying thoughts about you that they have not confessed to anyone. Thoughts about your value, your absence, the way your energy still lingers around them. Even when nothing is being said directly, they may sit with your memory more often than anyone would guess. And in those quiet moments, the truth may feel impossible to avoid. The next card appearing here is the Six of Cups. This card returns the sweetness of the connection in a painful way. It suggests they are remembering the simple moments now, the easy ones, the ones they may have overlooked while they were busy being emotionally careless. A message, a laugh, a look. The feeling of your attention when it was still being offered freely. Six of Cups says they are not only missing your presence, they are missing the innocence of what was there before they complicated it. That can hurt deeply, because once a connection changes, even the beautiful memories can start feeling heavy. The next card appearing here is the Eight of Cups. Now this card shows a difficult emotional truth. They may be realizing that by treating you lightly, they created the very distance they are now suffering inside. Eight of Cups is the card of emotional departure, the feeling that something meaningful has moved further away. Not always because love died, but because the path around it became too painful, too disappointing, or too imbalanced to remain the same. So this person may now understand that your heart did not pull back for no reason. It pulled back because it had to, and that realization may be haunting them. The next card appearing here is the King of Swords. This is important because it says the truth is becoming very sharp now. No more romanticizing, no more pretending they were simply confused. The King of Swords is clarity without decoration. It says this person may be forced to admit to themselves very plainly that they mishandled you, that they were colder than they should have been, that they treated sincerity like it would always be available on demand. And the more honestly they face that, the more difficult it becomes to defend themselves. The next card appearing here is the Sunday. This may seem surprising, but in this reading it has a very precise meaning. The Sunday says your value is now obvious to them, clear, bright, unavoidable. What they failed to appreciate before may now be standing in full light, your warmth, your steadiness, your emotional truth, your presence. The way you made things feel more alive, more human, more real. The Sunday does not let them pretend anymore that they didn't know. On some level, they know now, and the final card appearing here is the Three of Swords. This card closes the part with heartbreak, not only your heartbreak, theirs too. Because once someone truly understands that they helped break something beautiful, they often have to sit with their own part in that pain. Three of Swords says there is sorrow here, the kind that comes from knowing the damage was avoidable, the kind that arrives when someone realizes they were loved and answered that love badly. So the message of this fifth part is very clear. This person is not only regretting the loss, they are grieving the truth of how they handled you. They are remembering your softness. They are seeing your value. They are understanding that your withdrawal was not random. It was a response to being treated as if your heart did not matter. And now that understanding may be cutting deeper than they expected. There is one final layer here, and it feels almost impossible for them to ignore now. Part of what may hurt the most is realizing that you may have loved them more purely than anyone else did, and instead of feeling grateful, they acted entitled. Instead of handling it carefully, they tested it, delayed it, took it for granted. And now that your energy is no longer wrapped around them in the same way, they may finally understand what kind of love they were standing inside. Not cheap love. Not casual love, real love. The kind people often fail to value until the silence after it becomes louder than anything else in the room. And that silence may be teaching them every lesson their pride once refused to hear, not all at once, but slowly, honestly. Painfully, because now your absence has become the truth they can no longer argue with. Now, everything gathers here, and the final energy of this reading feels impossible to misunderstand. Not louder, not harsher. Just clearer because after all the regret, all the reflection, all the private ache, one truth is standing in the center of everything now. You are never small to this person. The first card appearing here is the World. This card says the connection has reached full meaning inside them. The world often appears when someone finally understands what a chapter in their life truly was, not while they were moving through it carelessly, But afterward, when the shape of it becomes undeniable, they may finally be seeing the whole picture, what you gave, what they failed to give back, what your presence meant, what your absence means now. The world says this is no longer just a passing regret. It has become part of their understanding of you and part of their understanding of themselves. The next card appearing here is the Ace of Cups. This is important because it shows that underneath all the guilt, all the sorrow, all the painful honesty, there are still real feelings here. Deep ones, sincere ones. The Ace of Cups is emotional truth rising to the surface. So this person may now be feeling everything much more openly than before, not because the feeling suddenly appeared, but because regret stripped away the distance they once used to hide behind. Now the heart is harder to silence. Now what they feel may be impossible to dismiss. The next card appearing here is the Ten of Pentacles. This card tells me the loss feels bigger than they expected because what they lost was not only affection, it was possibility. Real possibility, something that could have become stable, lasting, deeply meaningful. The Ten of Pentacles is not light energy. It is shared life, lasting structure, emotional security built over time. So if this person is grieving, part of what they are grieving is the future that could have existed, not only the memory. The future. The next card appearing here is the Star. This is beautiful because even now your energy still appears as something bright in their mind. Something healing, something rare, something they did not understand properly until it moved further away. The Star often shows that someone continues to represent hope, even after distance enters the story. So despite the regret, despite the ache, despite the knowledge of mistakes, they may still look at you as someone precious, someone who brought peace, someone who made life feel lighter. The next card appearing here is Justice. This card brings the truth into balance, because Justice says the story is no longer only about feeling. It is also about accountability, cause and effect, choice and consequence. Love in the way it was handled. Justice does not allow self-pity without honesty. This person may now know, without being able to hide from it, that they helped create the distance they are grieving. They may know that your withdrawal had reasons, that your silence had reasons, that your change in energy did not appear from nowhere, and that truth may be sitting very heavily with them. Now, the final card appearing here is the Sunday. This is a powerful ending because the Sunday says one truth has become completely visible. You mattered. You may have been the warmth they did not know how to protect, the sincerity they did not know how to honor, the kind of love they thought would stay even when they handled it badly. But now the truth is bright, unavoidable, and impossible to push back into the dark. So the message of this final part becomes very clear. This person regrets treating you like you were nothing because now they understand you were never nothing. You were comfort, you were meaning, you were care. You were a real emotional presence in their life. And whether they say that out loud or not, the cards say this much is true. They know now, they know your value, they know what your heart carried, they know what they mishandled. And they know that losing the closeness they once treated casually has changed the way they see everything. There is one final layer here, and it feels important to say it gently. Sometimes people do not recognize love while it is still standing in front of them. They recognize it when it becomes memory, when it becomes distance, when it becomes the thing they wish they had handled differently. That does not erase the pain. It does not undo the damage, but it does reveal the truth. And the truth here is not complicated. You were one of the most meaningful energies in their world, not because you demanded it, but because your heart was real, your care was real, your presence was real. And now, with all the noise stripped away, that reality may be the one thing they can no longer deny. The truth remains you were everything to them. You were never small to this person. The first card appearing here is the World. This card says the connection has reached full meaning inside them. The world often appears when someone finally understands what a chapter in their life truly was, not while they were moving through it carelessly, but afterward when the shape of it becomes undeniable. They may finally be seeing the whole picture, what you gave, what they failed to give back, what your presence meant, what your absence means now. The world says this is no longer just a passing regret. It has become part of their understanding